What's up everybody, Dan here with Dan and Sarah Makers, and welcome to a new video series for us. We have finally gotten to the point where we are ready to make ourselves a YouTube studio. What is that? It's basically just an easy spot for us to have projects out and work on them and to be able to film them in a climate-controlled environment, more or less. Over the last winter here, we've realized that it's really challenging to do any type of video filming, editing, things like that, or just video production work outside when it's, you know, 0 degrees to 28 degrees. I mean, it's not that fun. It's really challenging. So we are going to be creating our own space up here in the upstairs of the barn slash shop slash garage. So it's about a 20-foot square area that we're going to take of this upstairs. It's about 20 by 30 overall. We'll have a little bit of a 10 by 20 storage room off to the side just for boxes. Everybody's got boxes. So that'll be over there, but our studio area will be here. What are we doing here? Well, we are going to finish out the framed interior of this shop attic space. There is a very minimal amount of framing in the walls to create the structure, but it's not enough to create a nice flat supported wall. It's a mix of 2x6 dimensional material and 2x4 dimensional material. There's stuff on the flat. So there's going to be a lot of creative blocking that we need to do to get a nice flat wall to install drywall. We're also going to insulate our ceiling space. We've got 10-inch beams on the ceiling, so we've got a very minimal amount of room to insulate. We do want to have the bottoms of these beams exposed because it's just a cool architectural feature. So we're only going to be putting R21 insulation, or 5.5 inches of insulation, up in the attic space. It's not the full-blown, you know, residential house that's really well insulated, just because that's the nature of this particular project and space. We want the aesthetics, but we do want some insulation. So that's how we're going to do it. So there's a lot of blocking and framing that needs to be done to support our insulation, to support our drywall all over the place on walls and ceilings. We're going to insulate. We're going to insulate as best we can with the space that we have, and then we're going to kind of move some receptacles around. There's power up here already, but we're going to have to bring them to the face as we fur out walls, things like that. We're going to have some heaters up here, so that stuff will get installed. We've got a couple of windows back here. We're going to install inexpensive vinyl windows, double pane windows. Right now, this one over here is just a single piece of glass, just held in with some wood cleats, and it's got a crack in it. The other one's an aluminum single pane, so not much R value or insulation. I guess windows would be U value, correct? I'm pretty sure it's a U value for windows. But anyways, framing, insulation, drywall. We've got some videos that we can do on drywall because you've never seen us do drywall before. So we'll go through that. We're going to kind of abbreviate it a little bit more. We'll cover a lot more work in each video. Once we get our drywall up, mudded, taped, finished, we'll prime it. We may texture it. We're playing with that idea whether we want to texture or not. Prime paint, and we're going to do probably a dense pile, short pile carpet, kind of a commercial carpet on the floor, probably carpet tile. So if one of them gets damaged in the future, we pour paint on it or something as we're doing a project, we can peel it up, replace it with a new one. So yeah, it'll be pretty much a little finished out loft that would be a really exciting place to do videos in. So stick with us and check it out. So now you've seen the basic steps that we're going to use for this entire roof, attic, ceiling area. Along the ridge beam, I wrapped it with visqueen again, so when we do our drywall, our tape, our paint, our mud, all that stuff, primer, we aren't getting our beams that we want to be slightly exposed to get dirty and have to try and clean them later on. So visqueen's real easy. We do all of our finishing, our drywall insulation, and then we'll come back and we'll just use a razor blade and cut the visqueen that's exposed off, and we're done. I put a chunk of ripped down 2x4 on the side of the ridge. I used a spacing block to determine how far down I want my framing to support the drywall. And part of the reason I'm using a spacing block, and I'm going to use that all the way down, is because under a snow load, which is now, there's snow directly above me, there's probably about 1.5 feet of snow, this roof will sag. I could go to the ridge and I could go to the eave and I could measure down that 5.5 inches and I could snap a chalk line, and in the midspan of my roof, that chalk line might actually be, say, 4 inches down from the underside of the roof because of the bow of the beam. So by actually spacing it all the way down consistently, if the roof is sagged right now because of a snow load, our ceiling will follow the roof. And when that snow load comes off and the roof rebounds or springs back, it'll be straight. It won't be bowed and incorrect for the actual ceiling itself. So that's why I'm going to use a spacer block. I'm not running down and using a snap line. That's the reason. We're using some chunks of ponderosa pine for these 4.5 foot bays here. Ponderosa pine, in my opinion, we milled this up from trees that fell on our property with our wood miser. It's not the greatest lumber structurally. It's really heavy, it's really wet, but I feel like it'll be plenty for supporting R21 insulation and 1/2 inch lightweight drywall on the ceiling. So that's what we got going on here. There are going to be a whole lot of these every 2 foot on center. I'm going to install one, so each side, each bay is going to have, these are about 16-foot runs, so they're going to have about 8 of these installed. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I figure it'll probably take a day or two to install all of this blocking, but it'll be well worth it when everything's said and done. So I just got a whole lot of blocking to install.
For this wall, I went ahead and just snapped out a line for the bottom plate. Always try to maximize the length of your chalk line so it's as square or parallel as you need it to be. Don't try and snap a chalk line for marks that are 2 feet apart when you're doing a 20-foot long wall. For the sill plate, again, we're laying that along the chalk line, and I'm going to work from one end to the other. That way I can adjust it and keep it on line. As I'm nailing it, I'm angling the nail gun so that the nails clench down to that plywood a little bit better. I used a plane laser, a vertical plane laser, to lay out the top plate. And what I'm installing here is basically blocking that will act as drywall backer for the ceiling and also the top plate for the studs. This is probably going to be a temporary wall and may come out in the future, so I'm not going to the extent of actually putting top plates in and backing in. I'm just going to do it all together, and it should be more than adequate. A couple toenails, and the nails that I was using, for some reason they sparked quite a bit when we were driving them with this new Hitachi or Tabo HPT nail gun. Different brands of nails tend to do that.
For a quick progress update, I framed up a partition wall. It's probably only going to be temporary for a while. Just put the studs in 2 foot on center, more than adequate for drywall. My next project is going to be to remove the existing 2 windows here. One is just a single pane aluminum window. It's held in on the interior with some blocking. The other window is just a single piece of glass. It's cracked, so we'll tape it before I also pull that in. The rough openings are too big for a 3 foot by 3 foot or 3030 window. So I will line the rough openings with 3/4 inch plywood on all 4 sides, but then the nailer strip on the window itself is wider than that. So I will need to cut back some of the siding on the exterior and also put some blocking in on the interior portion of the wall so that when we put trim around the window, the trim actually has something to fasten to. Or else when I cut the siding back, it'll be floating in the air. So I've got a little bit of work here and get these 2 openings ready to go. And then when I actually install the windows, Sarah's got work that she's doing right now, but she'll be out later and help me install those windows. All right, here's the fun part. There we go. Very thick, very heavy old glass. All right, whew, got that out. I'll clean up the rough opening. I'll pull the old trim jams out, which are just on the inside. And then I'll start doing my blocking on the exterior for our trim and to support the siding when I cut it. I'll figure out how far I need to cut the siding back. I'll line these with 3/4 inch plywood like I said, and then just get everything prepped for installing the windows. We are done with all of our framing and blocking up here for the most part. We've got all the insulation done. We've had all the electrical roughed in. As you can see, there's some wires here still hanging. Those are awaiting the rest of this wall to be framed in at the top of the stairs, including the door opening. But trying to get the drywall up here is a challenge with the angles and everything. So by leaving the door framing out, it allows us just a little bit more room to get the drywall in. It's a challenge. But once drywall's up and stocked, we will frame this in, finish roughing in the electrical, insulate, and then we can drywall it. So we are moving on to drywall. There's 40 sheets that we purchased, which is just about a full truckload in the back of our truck. So we've got to bring them up here and we are going to start hanging them. Hold on. flooring, we're going to actually do a direct glue down carpet tile. It's a commercial tile with a vinyl back. And basically we will put the adhesive directly down on this plywood subfloor. Because it's been just plywood subfloor for who knows how many years, we've drywalled over it. It's had whoever, whatever on it previously. I'm going to go ahead and just go over it with an 80 grit mesh sandpaper with the orbital sander here and just clean it up, get it so there's no dust or any other type of material stuck to the surface. That way we get a good bond and we don't have adhesive basically bonding to dust or oil or grease or whatever's been up here in the past. So we'll just go over it lightly. I'll then look at any of the existing nails, make sure they're in all the way, countersink them if I need to, and possibly follow up with some screws into the joists if we've got any movement or squeaking. I finished sanding the floor. It's not down to bare wood everywhere. It's just, I don't know, 95% of the floor is actually sanded. There are a few low spots that aren't sanded, but that's going to be good enough for our floor adhesive. I completed going through and with a hammer and a nail set, individually setting or tapping down all the existing nails. A lot of them have been worked up and are a little bit proud of the actual floor. So I've countersunk them. I don't think this floor was ever put down with subfloor adhesive, but we're not going to rip it up and try and do that. And there's drywall and insulation from the underside. So again, we can't like go along the edge and put a bead of adhesive. So there are a few areas where the floor squeaks, it kind of moves a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I've got a bunch of collated screws. They come in these strips here. These are drywall screws. There's no subfloor or anything designed in these, but they are the 1 5/8 coarse thread drywall screws. So they're enough to get down into the floor joists and help secure the floor a little bit. I've got my Hilti SD 4500, which is a 4,500 RPM drywall screw gun. I've taken the conventional bit holder and the nose cone off of the screwdriver. And to get the driver bit out, you need pliers. I mean, it's really, really tough if you haven't done a lot. I put the long extension Phillips bit in it, and we're going to use this SMD or Screw Magazine Driver 57. It just goes on the end of our screw gun, and we can load up our screws. This will allow me to drive a lot of screws really fast consecutively and control the depth of drive. So it's a quick way of screwing off the floor. They use these upright drivers for screwing off floor decks now if you're going to glue and screw the floor instead of glue and nail. So this is just a short version of it. So I'm going to do that. Hopefully that'll reduce any lingering squeaks, anything like that. And also on inspecting this floor, I noticed there's one sheet back over here behind me where they nailed off the perimeter of the sheet, but they never nailed off the field. So that's a good catch. We'll be able to screw that off, secure that sheet down properly. And once we get our flooring down, we won't have as many potential problems underneath the flooring.
we've moved on to installing the carpet. And since this is a direct glue carpet, we have to put adhesive down on the floor. We're using a 3/8" nap roller and just rolling out the adhesive. It's basically a contact cement. And you let it dry. And when it dries, you'll see it goes from that pale green to more of this dark green, almost transparent color. You can see your chalk lines through there, which are control lines. And Sarah's starting to install the control course of floor tiles on this side. One thing that I really like about the area that we're living in is that people tend to trust each other, and the flooring company that we bought the tile from actually allowed us to buy half a bucket of floor adhesive, carpet tile adhesive, and take it back and we were done. So that's pretty cool. You don't normally see that, especially from where we used to live. So this goes down pretty quick in the field for an area about this size. It only took us maybe about 20 minutes total to install the majority of all the carpet tile. Cuts along the side did take a little bit longer, but you get up to the edge, you measure against the wall, and you kind of get a feel for how short from a precise measurement you need to install them. I had been cutting the tile from the back and making multiple passes with the knife to cut all the way through. And Sarah figured out that you can cut it just like drywall, a single score, pretty easily, and then you just break it and cut from the backside just like drywall. And so that made it go a lot faster. We're down to the final piece in the floor, which is just a little corner piece. I think by the time the second half of the adhesive had dried enough to install the tile, it was probably, I think, around like 8:30 at night. So maybe more like 9 o'clock at night. So it was getting up there almost 10 o'clock at this point. So we were a little bit tired, but pretty happy to get this last bit of carpet done. So we're putting the last piece in. And that deserves a high five.
Quick status update. We have got our baseboard, our door casing, and our stair handrail stained. We're going to put a coat of polyurethane on it. And we have our door pre-hung, but if you notice, it's square on the top like a normal door. And we're going to swing around here. As you notice, our door opening is not square. It's got this angled cut on the top of it. So we need to take our door and we need to cut it down and also build a new piece of door jamb that matches and install that into our door frame. This is because this roof here that the door will open into is a sloped roof. So if we had a regular door, it would only open so far before it would hit the roof up here. And we don't want that. We want it to open all the way. So we've got a little bit of custom modification to do, and we'll work on that today. We've now got our door in, and as you can see, we've modified it and we've custom created and installed a angled piece here. And also the top of the door over here has been cut at the corresponding angle. This is so, again, as I said, as the door opens up, it doesn't hit the ceiling because we have the ceiling sloping down, we have limited headroom. Because of that, I don't know and don't really care specifically what this angle is right now. It's the angle that works. So I haven't figured it out to be, you know, a 23-degree angle or anything like that. But as I'm setting trim and I'm installing trim across the top, I need to cut a piece of trim at this angle, or half the angle for each end. One thing I really like, and you can get this separately, I think there's another company that makes something similar, is an angle finder. And this is a Festool. It comes with the Capex chop saw, but you can actually buy it separately. And what this does is it basically opens up, and it has two arms that fold out, and you just push it until these two arms have to be slid back a little bit. This will do both inside and outside corners until both arms are touching the surfaces that you want to cut to. You then can lay this on the bed of your chop saw. So this leg or this leg, depending on if you're doing your left or right miter, are up against the backstop on your chop saw. And the blade, typically if it has a laser, it's most useful, but it's got a line down the center, which is the split between these two angles. You line up your laser on that, you adjust your chop saw, you lock it into that angle, and you make your cut. You have that angle now. It also works for, say you've got some weird bay window or something, or an outside corner, let's put it that way. Say this was an outside corner. You can slide these arms in or past the center point and push it up against the outside corner. So this will do all sorts of angles. Super nice, super easy. You're not guessing. You're not running back and forth this saw 10 times trying to figure out the correct angle, whittling away to make it look good. So this is definitely a tool that I would recommend investing in, even if you don't have a Festool saw. If you've got some sort of saw that has a laser, or you can lower it down and eyeball along the edge of the blade and this straight line. It'll work for any saw. All right, we'll do a quick spin around tour here. This is the low side along here. It's about 2.5, 3 foot tall. We've got electric heat right now, just a plug-in oil heater. That is because when we went and had our 6-foot baseboard heaters, we've got two of them, one on this wall and one on the wall behind us. When we tried to get those to work, they wouldn't work, and with a lot of troubleshooting, we discovered that one leg of 110 volt power coming out to the shop is bad. So we cannot do 220 volt power out here right now, and that leg that comes from the main meter base outside, it ties into the line that goes to the house somewhere underground. So the house has good power, the shop does not. So that will probably be a spring summer project where we have to dig up the lines underground and most likely replace it because we've got one leg that's bad. So unfortunately, we can't turn on our baseboard heaters or 220 volt stuff out here. So currently everything's on 110, just wired up into meters, so we skip every other lug in the power or the panel, the breaker panel. We've got some flat panel LED lights. We've got some 4-footers on one side and 2-footers on the other side. We can adjust the color of those light fixtures for filming. We've got our two windows out here. We've got our door in. We've got the area all carpeted. We've got it all trimmed out. And we've got, like I said, some moving blankets over here. There's a tapered area that matches the current shallow or short roof here on the other side of this wall for storage. And so those moving blankets are just kind of like a insulated door. But that will be where the sliding barn door will be installed right there.